Hello and welcome to another edition of E-Expressions by the New Indian Express. Today we're very happy to have with us a panel of very learned, educated speakers from across the spectrum to talk about one very important topic. We're here to talk about the future of management education, the challenges and the opportunities that the COVID pandemic has brought along with it. As we've all heard and seen, this is an unprecedented crisis that mankind has faced, probably one that we have not seen in our lifetimes. And the impact of it is something that we're still trying to suss out. And to discuss the future of how management education is going to be, how courses are going to be, how students are going to find it, whether the economy is going to be conducive to jobs and the future. We have with us today, we have Professor Rajiv Gowda. Professor Rajiv Gowda, of course, is somebody who's very well known. He's a former member of parliament. He's been at Wharton. He's been at University of California, Berkeley. I wouldn't say very recently, but of course, he's a moving force behind IIM Bangalore Center for Policy Research. Thank you very much for being with us, Dr. Gowda. We also have with us Dr. Ramesh Krishnan. Dr. Ramesh Krishnan, of course, is in government. He works with the AICTE. He works as the Director of Approvals. He's somebody who's seen the working of the government up close. He understands how policy works in the education sector. Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Krishnan. We also have with us today Dr. Munir, who is the Director of AI International College. Dr. Munir is somebody who has seen management education up close. He's been in Kerala. He understands how things work. And we're very happy to have him with us. Thank you. So let me begin by asking Dr. Gowda straight away. Professor, what according to you is the direct impact of this pandemic on management education as we see it, and management education as a whole, not just within the hallowed portals of the IIMs, but also in the smaller constituent colleges that dot our country? And if you could also sort of tell us whether you think there are any opportunities here that colleges have to take away.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, Dr. Munir, Dr. Krishnan, the senior management of AI, etc. It's such a pleasure to be here this afternoon with you. And we are all experiencing and going through, an extraordinarily disruptive moment in management education. We've heard of disruptive technologies. Well, in this context, it's a disruptive virus, which has upended the way we engage with education and especially management education. What this does, though, it has forced everyone, teachers to learn to move their courses online, and students to learn to, to imbibe knowledge in a very different way compared to the joys of hanging around with students and doing group work and various other kinds of things that make the college experience so rich and memorable. But at this juncture, what we have is an opportunity in a very different way. So far, colleges, business schools, management institutions have been very inward focused on just the resources that they have at their immediate command. Now, the moment everyone's moved online, then really that mental barrier to not wanting to explore or engage with materials that are beyond our own immediate creation or control, that barrier is broken. And when you break that barrier, you essentially are in a situation where you have the opportunity to reach out and engage with knowledge that has been created by the best people everywhere. And so that is a little bit of a challenge for teachers, because we don't want to take our own teachers and say, okay, we're going to just broadcast the lecture from some big shot from some other part of the world. But there is a major role for the teacher as well to curate this experience, to find a way to be a bridge between maybe other lectures and our own students and their experiences. Further, there is also an opportunity to change the way students engage with learning, right? The kinds of assignments that you give them, the kinds of real-world applications that you want them to engage with, the kinds of presentations that you want them to make. All of these are all going to change dramatically. And so I would say that management education at this point in time is at an extraordinarily disruptive juncture where the possibilities are enormous and endless, but you also have to balance the teaching and and sort of social aspects of the college environment with and the nurturing and mentoring roles that a college normally provided. All of those need to come together in ways that we had not necessarily imagined before. So it's going to be a lot of learning by doing. That said, there are numerous ed-tech education providers that have emerged. Some of them in the high school tuition space are suddenly worth a few $1 billion, right? I mean, people with origins in Kerala, Baiju and others are worth more than $10 billion. And that is, and they're all investing in finding better ways to create an online learning environment. And so basically, what students need to think of themselves as as sort of proactive learners, as lifelong learners, as people who will keep adapting to what is taught to them today, but also to who will craft courses and programs that open up new vistas for themselves over the years. The second part is the other major value that a business school or a management institution brings, which is as a pathway and a stepping stone to the world of jobs. IIMs have a historic advantage of placing all their students in good jobs, and that's something that is going to be up for challenge right now because, for example, we normally have a summer internship program, and this year, all those immersions and experiences have been significantly disrupted. So how do you engage with the world of work? My own son started his job just before the lockdown. He moved back from the US and has yet to meet his colleagues in 6 months. And they've been working night and day, but he's yet to meet them face to face, in person. Anyway, and they're all in the same city. Now, what also this change in this disruption does in the world of work is that work from home has become a new practice, and so this has its own pluses and minuses, and presents all kinds of challenges to people in the HR domain in terms of tracking and rewarding people for their contributions. It presents a challenge to leadership in terms of motivating and inspiring teams, getting the best out of everybody, and also practical challenges along the way. But again, the other thing that the pandemic has done is it has slowed down the economy within India and across the world. And this means that the number of jobs that are created will be fewer, and a lot of service sector opportunities that were the biggest driver of growth in the Indian economy, many of them are going to be massively constrained and shrunk. So it's up to our students to remember that old phrase, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Basically, you need to start thinking innovatively. You need to start thinking about what opportunities this whole disruption is providing. So one set of opportunities are standard, which is that there are going to be all kinds of opportunities that arise from the digital work from home kind of transformation. And so if you invest right now in skills that enable you to be a better performer online, then you will be in a better position to make an impact. If you are if you pay attention to the other emerging disruptions like artificial intelligence, machine learning, those kinds of domains, then data analytics, there are a lot of courses out there already which will give you a chance, even if the college curriculum is not ready for that yet, these will give you a chance to go out there and be market ready and to be able to essentially serve a market that is global. The other thing is that the nature of some of the service sector industries will also change. Let me give you one example. One of the tragic developments as a result of the pandemic and the lockdowns and the economic slowdown has been the shutting down of restaurants. The people are not going to going out to eat as much. Okay, but this has not slowed down the or maybe slowed down, but it has not shut down the activities of the food delivery services. You know, the Swiggies and the Dunzos and the Zomatos, and I don't even know all of them, but basically there are enough out there that are still doing the job. Uber Eats, you know, and basically now there is a concept called cloud kitchens, where you're not running a big, well-known restaurant, but you are literally running a kitchen which delivers food to people's homes using these delivery partners, right? So you could, you know, become a gourmet, you could launch a gourmet service even in smaller towns, and you might find that there's a tremendous opportunity, which is very different from the overhead and the marketing and everything else that was involved, and the rents that were involved in setting up a regular restaurant. Similarly, the case would be with, what shall we say, one other feature of the online world. There is something called the long tail. You know, people, when you go to Amazon or Flipkart for the big sales, there are one set of products that are available. But the same online platform provides an opportunity. The big players also provides an opportunity in the long tail for the niche players, for someone who has something unique and who has a book or some other product they want to sell. Then you need to find out how to reach a particular market, but you have the ability to reach that market without using the same platform as the big guys. So basically, when you think about all these kinds of domains, you will see that actually this is a transformational moment for all of us. But in this transition is opportunity. And therefore, I would urge all of you to gear up your morale, to be strong, to be resolute, and to focus on the longer term goals of being what every business school student should be, which is entrepreneurial in mindset, willing to embrace every change as opportunity to make a difference and to deliver real value, which will then be underlined by money that you can take home and put in the bank. Okay, I'll stop there with my initial remarks. Thank you.
Professor Gowda, a very interesting couple of points that you made. One, of course, is about the loss of social learning, which now that campuses have been out for about, say, the better part of the last 6 to 8 months, has been completely devoid in any form of education almost. And do you think that any college anywhere or any school anywhere would be able to deliver any form of equitable value when it came to social learning through a blended model or even through a completely online model of learning?
Oh, this is a very challenging aspect because it depends on access to the internet, access to technology to engage with the internet, to be able to deliver good content, all that sort of thing. And so this is a real problem. This amongst many digital divides that we were worried about. But the only hope is that enough people have reasonable smartphones, and enough people, typically people who are able to afford a business school education, should be able to invest in something like that. And of course, the internet access, except in Jammu and Kashmir and remoter parts of India, you basically have reasonable access. And so India has been very good at low-cost data. So hopefully that problem will be resolved. But the real challenge is, a lot of the value that comes from going to college
and meeting people and interacting with your professors and your
interactions, the socializing that comes, the group presentations and the joint studies and working to deadlines and all the chaos that the teamwork, everything that goes on. But those are all important learning experiences. And now, and for that matter, the fun part, the cultural competitions, the antaksharis, the quizzes,
would you
whatever.
go as far as to say that that's almost as important as the actual education that you imbibe? The part of that experience is in your experience?
I would say so, because a lot of going to college and to business school is growing up to gain the soft skills, the confidence, the critical thinking, the teamwork capabilities, the ability to listen and to contribute and to critique without hurting, but in a constructive manner. A lot of these things you can read about, but it's not the same unless you actually go through those real experiences. So part of the challenge for the educator is how do you engage with students so that they get those additional features that help them grow as as well-rounded students, well-rounded potential executives and entrepreneurs. That's the real challenge. Yeah.
One of the things that a lot of forecasters were talking about in 2008, 2009, when the markets really took a hit, was that they said that it was a great time to study. For obvious reasons, because jobs weren't there, and it would take a year or so for the economy to truly begin to sort of rebuild. Today, with our GDP shrinking as badly as it has, and like you said, with conventional jobs really having taken a hit, would you go as far as to say that this is probably a good time to study? I mean, if you're in that age group and you have the capacity to do so?
Yes, I mean, that's a consolation in that sense. But actually, what this internet-enabled education has done is it has opened people's eyes and minds to the concept of continuous learning, continuous upskilling, continuous investment in oneself, right? And there are all these other predictions that we're going to be changing multiple careers in the course of a lifetime. So we need to learn to engage with all this, to develop the discipline, to be able to devote so much time to exploring different domains. But the overall idea of why we normally say education is recession proof is because during these downturns people come back to school and then they hope that there will be an upturn afterwards where they can get absorbed into the growing economy and its opportunities. But at this moment we are actually still uncertain about when a vaccine will come in, what the world post-COVID will look like, whether we will go back at least to the trajectory that we were in, pre-COVID, which is not actually that great in the Indian context. Anyway.
But they say that at least within the next couple of years, when things begin to sort of stabilize and move towards, I'm going to see a pre-COVID economic scenario. I think that's when jobs will really sort of start taking off. But just to quickly ask you about your whole thrust on startups and entrepreneurship and looking for creative opportunities, if I may put it that way. You talked about everything from cloud kitchens to online e-tailing and all of these other niche opportunities that were probably never in any of the textbooks anywhere. Do you think that somewhere young India is ready for that push? They all want to start up, they all have great ideas, but raising capital, now that's always the big question. In this economy, do you really think that that's something that everybody should push for?
Entrepreneurship is something that's very aspirational for large numbers of people, but it requires the ability to take risks. It requires the ability to to raise resources to fund that initial period before your concept is reality, before your product is ready to hit the market, etc. And not everyone has that. Not everyone has the tacit knowledge that is required to run a business. So that's why a large number of kids have never been to work. At least in IIMs we urge people to get work experience before they come
and then come to college.
an MBA.
It really does help.
But a large number of Indians don't do that. They like to finish their education in one shot, and in that process, they've never actually been in a workplace, and so they don't know necessarily what is expected of them or how to deliver. And so there's a lot of socializing that's involved, and if you are not socialized in some ways into the world of management and organizational politics and accounting and ethics and a whole bunch of other domains, you may not know what is right and what is wrong, what is possible and what is not, and you may make bets which are too impractical, and so you may learn the hard way, and that might be a very
A
difficult
very costly
experience to
mistake.
go through. So it is complicated. It's costlier in the Indian context because we tend to treat failure very negative. In Silicon Valley, it's okay if you fail, you learn something. Nobody,
Silicon Valley is a different world
rejects
altogether.
you as a result.
Dr. Munir, you had a question for Professor Gowda.
Silent
Yeah.
Valley, which is close to.
Thank
Yes,
you
go
so
ahead.
much. Thank you so much, Professor Sir. It was very inspiring and interesting to listen to your thoughts, and I have all the time developed a very, very interesting question for me. That is, you have rightly pointed out that the education institutions and the whole learning process should be based on student engagement, and wherein the students should be able to develop employability skills and entrepreneurial skills. Actually, we also aim to create among our students, develop among our students a sense of becoming human capital, unlike the previously thought of financial capital, so that when they graduate from our campus, they will be either able to join an industry to be part of their core team, or either if they would like to choose to become the entrepreneurs, they will be able to take that path as well. So looking at the IM, experience and your own, international experience when you were in the US as well, where education institutions act as, leaders, and industry, go back to institutions for consultancy and support. So in India, except a few premier institutions, in India, for us, like, tier 2 kind of institutions, what you would suggest to inbuild the sense of becoming a human capital instead of becoming tomorrow's best employees or tomorrow's best employers? What are the major things that you suggest for us kind of institutions to emulate, to rather, to put it in a different way, to be victims of best thinking and best practices?
Okay, so this is a tough question, but basically, I like the emphasis on human capital because we want to develop people who are well-rounded and who have human values as well, along with being useful as capital in terms of wherever they are employed. So the best way is to unleash the potential of these humans by teaching them how to learn, how to work together. So many of these are not necessarily written down, but these are things that you would need to actually imbibe in them. And many times I've been to institutions where they would tell me, so you're from IIM, you have all the resources, you have all the access and all that. We don't. And I would say, look, the world of the internet gives you access to every single piece of knowledge that I have access to in IIM. It's more a question of how do you manage to translate that into something meaningful for you. That is one of the real challenges for your own teachers. So we have had a long habit in India of being what are called mug boys. We say, here is the syllabus, here is the material, here is what you need to master and repeat in the examination. Okay. But for me, when I used to teach a course called Business, Government and Society, I used to give students exam questions that were based on real world newspaper stories. I would, ask them to make presentations before each class on something from the real world that is relevant to the theme of that lecture, like that. And so you have to make them, come alive and engage with how the world changes. The other thing which you as a management can do is reach out to as many businesses of different kinds. It could be the restaurants, it could be the factories, who you know, who you're connected with, who are in India, who are in the UAE, who are elsewhere, and ask them to play a little bit of a mentoring role. Let those companies provide an opportunity to say, here, one day visiting this particular factory. And you ask them to take you on a video tour of the place, to talk to different people and what they do, to talk to the marketing manager on how they go out there and compete in markets, and things like that. And so if you are able to create that kind of a real world exposure in some ways, then this human, because a lot of human capital is about really opening one's eyes and
Yes.
opening one's hearts and getting that confidence and understanding and and that sense that we too are as good as anyone else and we can go out there and achieve and make an impact. So that's what this is something we should continue to have a discussion on.
Okay.
It's a major challenge.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, sir. That's a very interesting and
I think we should ask Dr. Krishnan at this juncture. Dr. Krishnan, happy to have you with us.
Yeah, I'm here.
To begin with, I'd like to ask you. You've been with the AICT for a long time. You've been an engineering professor. So it's safe to say that you have understood education from the grassroots level, all the way up to the policy level. And I think nobody would agree more that what we're seeing today in this pandemic, this COVID pandemic, and the way that it has completely affected the world of education is nothing that you've probably seen before in all your years of teaching. But do you see any positives coming out of it? Do you see any thing that we can take away from us and says, yes, we achieved this only because this pandemic happened?
Yeah. So first and foremost, let me thank Indian Express and AI International Group for inviting me to this wonderful discussion panel. And see, Mr. Dariel, we are speaking like this. This is the biggest positive thing that pandemic brought to us, right? Because
yes.
see, we know unfortunately, it's so unfortunate. Like our Indian education system is too rigid. Okay, we are even though we have all the laurels, we are highly, our teachers are the best, our institutions are the best, but the rigidity factor is somehow it is umbrella. It's like an umbrella to us, not allowing us to get exposed to whatever is coming to us. And we all feel like COVID is really a blessing in disguise. Like now, thousands of students see IIT Guwahati conducted the first convocation through this mode. Now
Virtual
everyone is doing
convocation.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the virtual convocation. IIT Guwahati
Yes.
was the first institute in India to conduct the virtual convocation. And now was a lot of seminars, webinars and all happening, even classes also, right from schoolings. I still remember in the month of July, my daughter is studying in 9th standard. So when the school authorities told, like now it's ensured like your daughter is having a smartphone and you have laptop in the home, and when they asked for the feedback, 99% of the parents, including me, we objected. Like, no, 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 I have my work, my wife has another work, and we don't have the faith on my poor daughter to give computer, internet, and leave her alone. We seldom know whether what she is actually seeing. Maybe in the screen, it might be the teacher, but maybe she's doing something else. But now things have changed, and we are positively also by sitting in AICT, we are positively seeing like, no, even though initially there was a little bit resistance, like they are not getting the feel of moving outside, they're not getting the feel of friends sitting together in the class, the heat of the campus, but now people are getting adjusted, and now things are moving. I think this is the greatest contribution that
Definitely.
COVID gave to us. That's
No
what.
doubt about it. So now that because Dr. Munir, of course, is a
Yeah.
seasoned management professional. You, of course, are an engineering professor, but because of your experience with the AICT, one of the biggest decisions just before the pandemic that the AICT took was, they took a very strong stance and said, henceforth, no institute should offer both the MBA and the PGDM, PG Diploma in Management, and that was a it was lauded as a very strong and interesting step by educationists. Could you tell us, though, how it has been implemented, as in how it has been taken, what the reactions have been, and so on?
See, Daniel and team, like this PGDM course itself was meant with the purpose like it is not falling under the clutches of any affiliating body. Because see, technology, every 11th minute, technology is getting a new value added. And management also, even though there are some Bibles like Kuhn's and all, some books are there, but management perspectives are also getting changed minute to minute, hour to hour, because globalization, we don't know what are the changes happening. But in the university system, how reluctant they are to change. Even now, maybe if you see 10 years back and today, the same textbook, the same pattern of question paper. Okay, it's all because it's all. Unfortunately, that is one pulling back factor of Indian higher education. Like we are falling under affiliation system, and in affiliating system, there are so many factors. If they want a small change, then they need to satisfy so many factors. So even this Vikram Sarabhai committee, when they formulated how management can be formalized as an education, so the first and foremost guideline itself was that it shouldn't be under the affiliating system. And that was the idea with which the ABCL, the first 4 IIMs were brought in, Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Calcutta, and Lucknow. And now that has been widespread. Because AICT once upon a time had a hurdle that one particular nomenclature of course, it can grow only up to 180 maximum. For idea, if a college is having MBA, this MBA can have only 3 batches maximum, 60, 60, 60. One batch is 60 and the growth is restricted to 180. So MBA, initially there were some colleges which are standing as PGDM institutes, some were standing as MBA. And since this rule was prevailing, like you can't grow beyond 180. Then some people started, okay, then if I go for PGDM, then another 180 I can go. So people started like, I have 180
doubling their
MBA,
capacity and
PGDM, so that, you know, management education, obviously, whatever we say, it go by brand of the institute. Whatever we say the brand, because there nobody asks how much percentage you have, whether you had any backlog, nobody asks. When a manager, a management graduate goes for an interview, right? It's all you are an alumnus of, that's it. And that brand of the institute will tell whether the guy or the girl is fit to adapt to the environment that is being posed by the industry. So when this came, sir, again, there were issues like 50% is with university affiliation, 50% is autonomous, and students also getting confused, and they can't, because PGDM, there is one more plus point, like the fee is not regulated, you know, as per the Justice Krishnan committee too.
that's
The
right.
PGDM fee is not regulated, whereas the university system is coming, the fee is regulated. And in order to boost the PGDM institution, the standalone institutions, we again brought in a new phenomenon called grant of graded autonomy to PGDM institutes. You might be aware of that. We have now issued grant
Yes,
of
yes.
graded
The
autonomy
NEP
to,
also talks very strongly about
yeah,
graded autonomy. It's a
the
major
graded
talking
autonomy.
point.
And in the first cycle, we have 4 institutions in India, which are purely standalone, and they are given the freedom based on the NBA score. Either they should have an NBA score of not less than 700 in N-1 programs that are eligible, or they should have figured out within the first 300 of any world rankings. World ranking means Briggs or Times or
QS,
QS
PHE,
rankings.
any of them.
So
Yeah.
in the first phase, we got 4 institutions like that. So when we want to open the doors, so let the college grow, let the students get exposed. So this affiliation system, partly available with the college, was a hurdle. So that's why we took a decision like let them be separated. So there were a lot of hues and cries, like suddenly in one fortnight, ICT is telling you separate the college into 2. From where, in a city like Bombay, in a city like Bangalore, where
You won't
every
find the space to
millimeter,
separate the college.
every centimeter is people bargain for a centimeter. How to separate? So we have given them 2-year time. Okay, you take your own, because within the jurisdiction they can change wherever you want. So let's see, like there is no mix, so that finally we want to prove, like if autonomy is given, that's it. There is no limits for the institute to grow, for the students to mold, and for the teachers to experiment whatever they feel it is good to build a good new
You know,
generation.
Dr. Unikrishnan, you talked about autonomy, and like we just mentioned, autonomy is one of the driving points in the Kasturi Rangan committees. Both Dr. Bhargava and Dr. Kasturi Rangan talk very highly about how it's important to give people the autonomy and the freedom for educational innovation. You're somebody who has obviously studied the NEP in great detail, as most people in the MHRD. Where do you think it impacts and betters management education? And there was also some talk about how management principles are being applied from a very basic school level all the way, so that students get some form of exposure all the way through to the undergrad and to the postgrad. What are your views on this?
See, Daniel, like NEP is a wonderfully drafted document. I will see, like this is the Indian version of the global education. Like this is what education should be. There is no narrowing down. Like if I want to do this, I should learn only this. I can only learn this because you know the present system there is already predefined ladders or brackets. Like if you want to be an engineer, you should mandatorily study only this, and whatever additions he's having out of his interest, they are nowhere being counted. So this NEP is just aimed at the overall development of the candidate with a huge emphasis on the society, with a huge emphasis on the Indian history, and also with a huge emphasis on what the student actually wants to be. Here, actually, the challenge is for the teachers, not for the students. Students, they are free. They can choose whatever it's as per their passion, as per
They have
their
more
desire.
choice
They
than
can
ever
choose, I want
before
to
in the
study this.
history of Indian education.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they have more choice. They have more choice. Now the poor stakeholder is the teacher, who was very comfortable with the affiliating system. Study, take two papers, somehow manage notes, and you know, even now, majority of the colleges, the blackboard, writing the notes, giving assignments,
Definitely, no
do
doubt
some,
about it.
okay, study 10 advertisements and come, study 10 advertisements and come. What is the relevance? Finished. MBA education is over. That is the affiliating system, management education, right? Now, a varied cultured students are coming with 10 students are equal to 100 old students. They are coming with varied culture, varied technical know-how, varied arts know-how, and they are coming and sitting in the class. Now the challenge is actually for the teacher to how, what to teach, how to teach, and tends to be, earlier we know plus two PCM students are coming, or for an MBA when these many students are coming, we know like these are the back the average we can coin down the students are average of this level. Now it is totally different. In addition to that, you know, every teacher has two counterparts now. One is Google, one is YouTube. Okay, so the biggest competition lies there. Okay, so that's what it's a beautiful thing, but that's why we have started. We have kept, you know, maybe 12 to 13 years as the homeworking period, so that
To
if you
really see
want to
the
stick on to
impact
the
of the
profession,
NEP, yeah, to really see the impact of the
yeah,
NEP, you
that's
believe it
12
will
to
take that
13
much
years
time.
we have kept.
Wonderful.
Yeah, 12
Dr.
to
Munir had a
13
question
years.
for you.
Yeah, yeah.
We have,
I just would like to add one thing as a value addition to what Dr. Ramesh ji has said, that autonomous institutions will have much more flexibility, advancing the requirement of the workplace, of the expectations of the employers. At the same time, when we had a discussion with Dr. Ramesh Krishnan, he also said that this affiliated college kind of situations, like constituent college kind of situations, all these things will be phased out in the future. So actually,
I think
when I
that's what the
told,
NEP also says. The NEP
yeah,
also very
NEP,
strongly
yeah,
talks about
NEP very
ending
strongly says,
affiliation.
because this is because basically what the doctor said, like students are not given much freedom in classroom to expose themselves to discovery kind of learning. They have been exposed to receive information and knowledge. So this create kind of situation where our students are not employable as such. So NEP is actually driving us, or driving the institution to focus on the future, instead of depending or counting on the heritage and history of the institute. We should rather focus on innovations. That is what Dr. Ramesh sir has said. I totally agree with his viewpoint, and it is going to create a multiplier impact the way institutions are going to educate their children, and how are they going to be welcomed at the workplace.
Dr. Munir, just a follow-up question now.
Yes.
Your institute, of course, is one that is chosen to go with the PGDM route. Right?
Yes.
You have a very strong focus on PGDM. But always, in the Indian context, there comes a question:
Yes.
what has more value? Is it the MBA? Is it the PG diploma? Unfortunately, because of that word diploma, everybody tends to think that the PGDM is some weekend 2-hour course. Unfortunately, that's not the truth. But do you still feel that there is a perception problem between the MBA and the PGDM as far as Indian parents and Indian students are concerned?
Yes, it's a very interesting question. I can answer this if there is anything that I missed out. We also have Dr. Ramesh Krishnan also here. That is a very positive side of it. To answer this, I would quote what happened to Harvard Business School. Harvard Business School has the second Indian American as the dean, and who is a postgraduate diploma graduate of India. So we know, what Dr. Ramesh sir said, there is, greater flexibility given by the autonomy. And until the Indian Institute of Management Bill of 2017, all the IIMs were offering PGDM. The program was purely called as PGDM. But unfortunately, as you said, rightly pointed out, that there is still notion among not so much aware parents that MBA is much more better. I'm not differentiating as such between a very innovative MBA and PGDM, but the structure of PGDM gives much more scope for development of human capital for the students. There are basically 4 reasons for that. First one is that who is going to train the students? That is the fundamental question that we have to ask. In a conventional MBA kind of colleges, UGC only stipulates that the teacher or the professor should have a postgraduate degree, plus he should clear the NET exams. But most of the PGDM institutes, they stipulate that the person who is coming on board to train the students, he should have rich industry managerial experience. So it is a matter of how are you going to engage the students? How much is your content expertise in addition to your solid knowledge base? Because we know the knowledge that we are talking about tomorrow, that is going to be very dynamic. It's not going to be stable. So we need, as our Rajiv sir said, that we need someone to mentor from the industry. If not from the industry, if we have someone already on board with us in the institute to mentor, who has got experience, and that is going to be a wonderful value addition for the students in the campus. Second thing, as Dr. Ramesh sir said, that the curriculum that has been followed in some of the institutions which are of last very old period. Now let us look at what are the autonomy, what are the things that the autonomy can provide to us. We can look forward further into the future and bring in whatever things are required for the future. Especially this autonomy is going to work well for institutions, because the conventional institutions might, or conventional system might ask faculty to go ahead, follow a system or a curriculum which has been set well before the COVID. But for us as an institute, as an autonomous institute, we can be very well ahead of time. We can be very well ahead of technological trends, and we can imbibe all those things which are happening or going to happen in the industry, at workplace, in our classrooms and campus. So this is a basic advantage. Same way, one more thing I would like to add is that about the assessment. How are the skills being developed and imbibed by the students? They are not being assessed in the form of mere written kind of assessments. We also have autonomy to assess the students, to have formative kind of assessment, wherein we help the students to learn while they are being assessed. So this kind of autonomy will help us to come up with innovations and to challenge the kind of conventional methodology, learning, teaching methodologies that have been followed. And we are sure that with these changes, if an education institution like ours, with like Dr. Ramesh sir has already said, like with the brand support of AGI, we will be able to push forward the potential and promise of the students who are going to workplace. So
I think you also speak for a lot of the standalone institutes in the country, which are really sort of trying to push forward. And I think they carry the aspirations of thousands and thousands of students across India. On that note, I'd like to invite a few students to ask questions.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah.
Okay, I'm a management trainee.
All right.
Okay, I have a question that what are the job opportunities for us post-COVID, and what will how can we improve?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to,
Dr. Munir, if you'd like to answer that.
Yeah. It's a very, very interesting question. But the question is might be, interpreted as pessimistic, but the answer is very optimistic. In the COVID pandemic situations, most of the employers have decided to contract their business. They have decided to shrink their business, not because they wish to do so, but because of forces which are found to be or identified to be beyond their control. And we also have, so many employees sitting at home, not because they are unskilled, they are much skilled and experienced. They are ready to offer their services, okay? So we have to find a synchronization between the expectations and ambitions of both these people. That is employers on the one side and the employees on the other side. The pandemic has to teach us how we can innovate on ways where we can help our employers to expand their business. If any employee sitting at home is ready to offer a solution for any employer to expand the business, there is really way for the employee as well as for the employer. So this is how we have to come up with. So this is the kind of campus experience, educational experience we have to imbibe, that is grounded on creativity. So creativity and innovation can actually open up vistas for both the employers as well as for the employees. Okay, I hope the question is answered.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would firstly like to thank all the panel members for giving us such an informative session. I am Donna and Matthew. I'm a BCom third year student. I have two questions, one for all the panel members and one to Professor Gowda. One is that how will the world look at us now that during the pandemic, we are students studying right now, and will we always carry the tag of the first pandemic graduates throughout their life?
Very, very good question. Yeah, it's again a very challenging question, and I would give from my side the answer. Some tags are actually keeping us moving further forward. That is actually the challenge. So we will, as a graduate of COVID period, you have all the challenge which the society has never experienced. It's an unprecedented challenge. So you are going to get trained on reimagining the operations model that is going to come up tomorrow. So the core that you have developed inside in you as an individual, as a employee or tomorrow's entrepreneur, that's having quite good spark. That spark is actually going to help you to move further forward in future. So it is not just list of skills or pieces of information or knowledge that actually guide us further forward. Rather, some of the convictions that I can be a self-made individual in spite of all the hurdles that can be thrown on us. That is the kind of confidence and optimism that this COVID batch. I don't like to call it as COVID batch as such, but if anybody calls it COVID batch, there is actually a fire. That fire is not to destroy anyone, but is to develop anyone who is affected by it.
Donna, if I may add on, I'm sorry,
Yes.
I'm sure Dr. Munir put it way better, but initially when the question of the final exams came up, Maharashtra, Delhi, and several other states, they sort of said that we're going to COVID promote you. And, in Maharashtra, students came and said, hey, I don't want a mark sheet that says COVID promoted. I want to write these exams and I want to get, so many centums and I want to get a great grade. And they protested, right? And then the Supreme Court came and said, you guys can't do that. They said, this is not done. Everybody has to take some form of assessment and you're going to grade them on that assessment and they're going to make it through. So honestly, I think that this is a time of great adversity. And the fact that you guys are a COVID batch is something that will always be a talking point, which means you walk into an interview and they say, hey, did you graduate in 2020 or 2021? And you're going to be like, yeah, I'm from the COVID batch. And I think that's a great talking point. And believe me, great interviews are always about great conversations.
Yeah. One more thing I would like to add is that because of this COVID, the students and the faculty, they have experimented on new ways of doing things. That is actually, very good. Even if COVID goes away, people have become much more, digitally, literate, and not just literate, they have become literally, masters. So this is the kind of, exposure any pandemic can provide to us. If you take it positively, we should further, keep going further up.
Hi, sir. I'm Asuma from UAE. I'm a BBA graduate. Firstly, I'd like to thank the speakers for sharing their views with us. And so my question is, as we are all very used to and have been coping up with the traditional learning system, how can we cope up with the new educational system for post-graduation?
Thank you for asking that question. That's actually, very encouraging question, especially institution like us, where we have placed ourselves on innovations. The new education policy actually tells us to have more avenues for engaging the students in the teaching learning process, which actually we have planned for, which most of the premier institutions of India as well as of the globe had been doing it as well. So the new education policy actually tells all the institution on a mass scale to phase out all the conventional practices of passing information to the students and expecting that knowledge pieces that they have got from the campus will help them at workplace. The new education policy insists that the educational experience should have much of student talking time than professor talking time, which means the student has to engage in the learning process more actively as co-producer. You understand me? He has or she has to go for discovery kind of learning, engage in project kind of experience, experiment on presentation skills, working on areas where he can develop or she can develop his skills rather than just having some information and knowledge. Work on situations where values of human values which help our organizations or our family fabrics to move further forward, to be imbibed at the campus, to test it, to experiment it, to fail in the campus, and to get it corrected by people who can correct them, rather than making a bigger mistake at workplace. So we have actually avenues not only for learning, but also to unlearn things that we should throw away with. So that is the crux of the new education policy. And we are proud that we have, devised our curriculum, our programs in such a way that we are well ahead in implementing the guidelines of new education policy 2020.
Good afternoon all. I'm a management student. I have a question that these days with blended and online learning, my question is that how much was the value of a management degree will change?
Very good question. How much the value of management education would change just because the delivery mode has been online? I would tell you there are majorly two classifications that we can make when it comes to developing graduate attributes or professional competency of a graduate. First one, how has he been or she has been engaged with scholastic activities? Second, in co-scholastic activities, that is extracurricular activities. Okay, so in scholastic activities, there are four things that the students should get engaged with. First, he should be able to interact with a very experienced, industry experienced professional. In COVID situation also, there is no harm in getting them because in a more way, especially with our global classrooms and all, we will have n number of choices when it comes to very experienced and expertise faculty. So because of this online situations or post-COVID education model, we are much more exposed to people who have international experience. First one, I hope the question is answered. First part. In the past, we had professors who could be made available within the four walls of the classroom. Now we have actually opened up the exposure of the students. First one. Second one, even if the COVID situations goes away from the scene, our students have become much more, as I said before, have become much more digital savvy. They can, operate on digital platforms. They can use, things that never thought would come up in a classroom kind of situation, would only come up in a kind of workplace only. For example, the kind of assessment that we had at work, we had until recently in the institution will go for a more digitalized versions of assessment. So at workplace, it is not necessary that you all will be assessed. You have a performance appraisal, which wherein you will only be assessed by someone who can physically meet and connect with you. You have at workplaces, because you are going to work in a multinational company where you are being digitally assessed. So well, in the COVID period, you are well ahead of time being assessed, and you are very much prepared for any kind of assessment. What are the expectations of or rubrics of assessment that you take as a as a simulation of a workplace performance appraisal. So you get much more things at the campus which we were never thought of available at campus. So it is actually a golden time, but we have to see and we have to look at with a positive set of mind, and then this is actually helping our students to have much more competitive graduate attributes.
And I really think that's the takeaway today. I think we all have to stay positive. We have to make the most of now. We have to make the most of this situation and look at all of these great opportunities that we see coming through COVID. Take digital learning, take blended learning, use every single opportunity out there, and
Yes.
really become the best at what we are. Thank you so much, Dr. Munir. Thank you so much, Professor Gowda. Thank you, Dr. Ramesh Krishnan. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you so much.